and thank you for joining us on Gallery Watch. I'm Cassandra Hart, and today we are in North Fremantle at the beautiful Gallery East, where they are currently exhibiting inspirational prints and sculptures. These tattoo-themed creations are the works of Paul Binney and Amanda Shelsher. So do any of these pieces stand out to you so far?
Well, for the ceramics, it would be that one. I like the faces are very feminine, so they look so it's sort of more engaging. You can see the more emotion than the ones over there, which have the more flat faces. Also, the historical context of the wave woodcuts, the Japanese woodcut that you see everywhere, I also really like, and the colour. I mean, the other ones don't really have colour, so she uses it really well. So for the ceramics, this one, and the hands, they sort of draw you in, which I like. With the prints, I'm quite a fan of Japanese prints, which is, with the old ones, the one over there is really nice because it's got the dark colours, but it's not gloomy. And with the new ones, I like the lady with the blanket towel thing, because she's sort of, there's a fragility there, which the other ones don't really have, and it's sort of classical, and the pose, so, and the pink around the eye, I really enjoy.
What do you like about Japanese art?
I've been to Japan, and I really enjoy, it's very distinctive in its style, and it's just the colour, the way they do noises is really interesting. Like the way you look at them, and where the guy has stubble, they do it in blue, which I've never seen anywhere else. It's really interesting, and the patterns are very much a part of the art, and they've got the traditional ones, which you see a lot, but it's just something that I really like.
Years ago, I saw some of the Japanese films, samurai type of films, so looking at these prints, I can link it with the modern medium. But it's also interesting to note the linkages between traditional type of prints and more contemporary ones. So that interests me as well. And also the linkage with the sculptures and the tattoo motif there. So all of these things are of interest to me.
They're sourced from the 1700s and 1800s. How do you think these ones compare to, I guess, Western art?
I think Japanese art, like Chinese art and Korean art, has very long traditions, and a lot of the craftspeople and the artists, the masters at that, while they may have had their individual style, they were following traditions that had been centuries old. So even these things from the 18th and 19th century, they look similar to some of the Japanese prints I've seen in books from the 16th century. You can see where people have retained the same techniques, using the same sort of implements. So that has come right through. Although it may be possible that by the 19th century some of the Japanese artists might have been influenced a little bit by European contact with Westerners, just as Westerners in Europe and America were very much influenced by contact with China and Japan, and it was very fashionable to have chinoiserie and Japan prints in Europe. So I think there would have been a little bit of cross-fertilization.
about the sculptures?
Sculptures. Interesting. The faces.
Might come back in our nightmares.
Yeah.
They're pretty
No,
creepy,
interesting,
but
but
the
they're
actual bodies are really cool.
beautiful. They're lovely. Yeah.
So I guess does the Japanese art sort of appeal to you more here today?
Yeah, you more so.
Yeah, I actually did an art A level, and I did some studying from Japanese prints and stuff. I really like it. I think they're gorgeous.
What aspects of Japanese art appeal to you?
Just the detail, it's amazing detail.
And do you think Paul Binney's done a good job in sort of replicating the style of traditional Japanese art?
Yeah, I would say so.
So how are you finding this exhibition here today?
I don't want to say the usual things like it's a very good, very bad exhibition. But what I want to say, it is very special because it reminds me a lot of times when I was very interested in Japanese prints, and yeah, there's some sentimentality going on my part.
What sort of emotions does it sort of evoke from you being?
I think it's very much the sort of thing that there is a possibility that art can connect to history in many ways, and I think because of that it's also an encouragement to try out new things and keep on working and yeah, basically not to give up hope that maybe everything is in vain in terms of culture.
Do you think that the artist Paul Binney has done a good job in sort of upholding that tradition?
Yeah, I think there is some linking there, but of course it shows a kind of adaptation to new ways of doing art and using maybe a little bit different materials and all this. I don't know enough about the details of it, but looking at it, it sure has a little contemporary look to it. So there, of course, that real old Japanese approach and different motifs to work with is not there, you know. But there's some atmosphere or ambience which can be linked to that.
And how about the sculptures here today that are made by Amanda?
They're very much a good way to approach three-dimensional object making. I mean, and also, of course, there's a love into detail, and this would mean sufficient for a sculpture to be representational anywhere.
How about then the Japanese back in the 19th century that obviously got these tattoos on their body as sort of a way of expressing themselves? Do you feel differently about that sort of tattoo or old style tattoos compared to modern day?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a big difference on that one because the old way or the old tattooing, you could say, are not based on a commercial idea or on a fashion, or it's popular, or our Hollywood stars, movie stars show us how to do it and this kind of thing. But nowadays, of course, it has been taken up by the media, and I would say lots of young, not only young people, lots of people wouldn't do it if there wouldn't be such a hype around this thing. So tattoo and use of tattoo in art as that differs to now, of course it does. Yeah.
So you've known Amanda for a long time as her sister-in-law. Can you tell me a little bit about her as a person?
I guess she's a very talented girl, and even she's a fantastic artist, but she's also a brilliant singer, a fantastic guitar player. I remember the first time I heard her sing, because all I'd known before was a very loud Amanda. And then she got out this guitar and thought, oh, where did that beautiful voice come from? Because usually it was just shrieks before then of laughter. And she's a very loud, bubbly person.
And has she been doing art the whole time you've known her?
She has. We met in France 20 years ago, I think it was. We're actually outdoor ed instructors, so she was teaching sailing and windsurfing on the beach. So we'd spent a season doing that, and then we bought some combi vans and travelled through Europe together. And then we both taught canoeing together in France as well. So she's done a few other things. She's a teacher. I'm a teacher as well. And so we actually lived together in London for a little while, both teaching, taught the East End of London, which was really interesting. So yes, I guess I've seen the artist and I've seen the teacher as well.
And what do you think of her work?
I think it's amazing. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Actually, when we were in France, she and another artist, they painted this hallway, made this huge big mural, just a painting of the ocean, and it was fantastic. So no, she's a great painter as well.
Don't go away, because after the break we will be back with more from Gallery East. Welcome back to Gallery Watch as we have a look at more from the INKED exhibition at Gallery East. The creator of these magnificent sculptures here today is a local artist by the name of Amanda Schelscher, whose work can be found in exhibitions across the country. Amanda, can you tell me what the theme of this collection is here today?
This collection is, these were all made specifically for this show, based on working with all the Japanese themed artwork, but these are all about me. They're androgynous figures, but all of them are actually talking about me and my children and about the lifestyle that I want from my children. So a lot of their bodies are depicted with plants and insects, and always either holding houses or birds, because they're torn between this, living in a urban environment. We live in Inglewood, but they're also wanting a better life for my children, so wanting to actually find the ideal home. So their bodies tell stories of the ideal environment, either being in the bush, or some of the other works include waves, which are new for me. Normally most of the work has plant life on and insects and birds, and the birds are usually talking about my connection and love of nature and the bush, but they're also a version of me wanting to get away and to escape, and so they're torn between wanting to stay or wanting to go.
And is there a reason why you have the hands placed sort of up around the face in a lot of them?
I suppose because they're very narrative, my works. They're trying to tell a story. So they're showing you, they're sort of pleading with you a bit, sort of saying, help me make a decision, because I'm a terrible decision maker. So a lot of it just happens unconsciously or subconsciously a lot of the times. Usually the hands are a lot bigger. A lot of people have commented to me over the years that why are your hands so large, out of proportion. I suppose being an artist, my hands are my life, and I've always been drawn to making hands, even as a 16 and 15-year-old. And they're cradling them. As being a mother for two children that are 7 and 5, it's hands-on, nurturing, protecting, holding. So there's also that element with the hands.
Does each object have a specific story that you had in mind while you were creating it?
Yeah, usually I'll make the piece, and they virtually make their own way. They'll change, but then as I'm working on them, I'll decide to put their heads to the side or just figure out where their hands should go. Sometimes I don't know till the end. I'll leave their hands open and figure out what object to put in there. Sometimes I make the object separately, and at the very end I'll decide to put seed pods in there or a house. This one specifically talks about a bird house. So with this one I knew I wanted it to be more Japanesey with more intense sgraffito work, where you're actually working into the surface with a scalpel, so they're scratched into. So I didn't really know what the other work was going to be in the show, but I've always had an interest in tattoo work and Japanese tattoos. So these are more intense, this particular piece, home and catch and release over there.
And is there a reason why you just do the upper torso and head?
Yeah, I think it's sort of become my trademark a little bit now because I've always done busts. I've been doing busts like this, making busts like this for like the last 10 years. They've changed and evolved over that period of time, but even though I've done them so many times, I've always feel there's more to say with using that form. I've done full-length figures and I've done a lot of figures like that, but I always come back to using this format to tell a story. When I work, I don't think about what other people think of them, because everything I make is really, really personal. It's all about, I concentrate on me trying to tell a story, and when I'm working, it's that desire, figuring out where do we want to live, what do I really want out of life.
Well, you've also had your work exhibited around the world, not just here in Australia. Do you have anything exciting planned for 2011?
Oh, no, actually I'm wanting to have a bit of a break. I've had 18 months of shows, so the constant shows have been quite a strain, just physically making all the works and the pressure of deadlines and trying to get works together. And I just hope to probably concentrate on probably new techniques and maybe entering a few competitions and stuff. So next year I hope, I need a bit of a time out just to recoup, because it's been really 4 years, it's been since 2007 I've had shows, show after show after show, so it's time to just slow down a little bit.
So tell me a bit about this image here with the two smaller people on the boat on top of the head.
This is one of the last busts that I made for the show. A lot of my work typically has been about having imagery of the bush and banksias and gum trees and insects. And for this piece, our endless quest when we're looking for a house is to be closer to the beach. So I thought, and because the gallery's by the beach and there's this famous image of the giant wave, I thought, I'll have a beach theme. But the boat, I used to do figures with boats. So this is me, but the two figures are my children. So she's calling out, sort of like, where are we going? Where are we going to? So that one's quite new. And also introducing colours very new in my work. Normally my works have just been typically sepia colour and white. So that's new for me.
So can you tell me a little bit about these three busts here?
These black and white ones specifically are in porcelain, so these are different clay from the other busts. So they're white figures with a black slip on it, and then I scratch into it. So these ones I've made that talk and document about my neighbourhood and my suburb. This one specifically is our house. I've done a series of works that actually are our front porch, and this one is just documenting houses in our area. So in other shows I've had maybe 4 or 5 of these, and so we live in an older part, 1930s, 40s style. Californian bungalows are sort of predominant in the area. And it's basically wanting me sort of being again in the city, but my mind's wanting us to be somewhere else, being out in the bush. So they're filled with insects and plant life. So it's imagining our house in the bush. So it's sort of this, again, pull and, between wanting to get out and live somewhere else. It's making a decision. It's sort of them, when I make them, it's like decision time for me. Where are we going? What are we doing? Where do I want to be? Where do I see myself? So a lot of it's very therapeutic for me, I suppose. Just trying to figure it out.
And how about this one with the egg on top of the head?
This piece is from 2000. This was made late 2009. This one. This again was me being a mother. I'm half bird form. I'm drawn to birds a lot of the time, so I've always have bird imagery in a lot of my work. It's looking after the kids nesting. The nest for me is home and a house, but me being the safekeeper of the home and the children. So I thought the best way to talk about that is having an egg, and it's a porcelain egg. And it's on top of her head, it's very sort of precarious, and she's having to look after it, and there's also like a weight on her shoulders.
So other than just having a general interest in the birds, I've noticed you've got a lot of sort of bird figurines in your work. Do they represent something else?
Well, they used to be. When I was working in 96 to 97, David and I spent 3 years of travelling. And the birds, when I first came back to Perth and first had an exhibition at Pika, and from then on, were always me wanting to travel. So it was freedom, wanting to get away. But now the birds are me again wanting to move and wanting to travel, but to find a different house. And when I was pregnant with children, I did a lot of documenting birds that were protective of their kids, of their young. So it sort of satisfies lots of things for me. I've always been obsessed with angels as well, and that's where it probably came from. When I was a little girl, I had an angel necklace given to me from my Oma, and from that, I've always been drawn to birds. They sort of represent lots of things for me in that way.
I'm here with Janis Nadella, who is a curator at this wonderful gallery here. Janis, unfortunately the artist of these prints behind us, Paul Binney, can't be here today. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about him.
Well, as much as I know, Paul Binney is Scottish, and although he now lives in London, and he fell in love with Japanese prints, in particular the ukiyo-e, the traditional wood blocks, when he had a visit to Paris, saw an exhibition over there, fell in love with it, decided that he wanted to learn and study more and find out a little bit more about that whole era, and decided that he'd go over to Japan. Went to Japan with the idea of learning with a particular master while he was over there. Couldn't get into the school because the master in particular was ill, and then trained with another master, another professional, who helped him develop his own personal style, is what we see here. And when you think with somebody who's Scottish heritage, living in London, but then also sort of travels and over to Japan maybe 3 or 4 times a year, he really has the passion, he has the love for that particular subject matter.
So why have you chosen these 3 particular artists to kick off the year for you?
We wanted to do traditional Japanese prints, but we also, because we chose the subject matter tattoo, we wanted to bring it into the modern context, into the 21st century. And we looked at, and we knew about Amanda's work in 3-dimensional form with her ceramics and porcelain forms. So we decided, well, she's the contemporary, sort of the 3-dimensional part that we're looking at, but then we needed to bring the two together, and we needed to have a third body, and that's where Paul Binney's work comes involved, because he uses modern subject matter, but then he uses traditional imagery from the 18th, 17th and 18th century.
So it ties it all up quite nice.
So it puts it all into one little tight show.
So Janis, what's on the cards next here at Gallery East?
Next one opening on the 11th of February is a minimal artist paintings by Dragica Milanovic.
Unfortunately, we're out of time today on Gallery Watch. I hope you've enjoyed this exhibition as much as I have, and I'll see you next time.